lives and many careers, but always been ahead of the curve, always taken risks, been a disruptor, innovator, entrepreneur, and also a great philanthropist, which is one of the rare things that you have in Indian businessmen. So thank you so much for joining us today, Ronnie.
Pleasure.
And I see that you're wearing your upgrad T-shirt. So
well, when you don't have to wear trousers, you have to wear the right shirts, right?
So
he knows how to promote himself and the product which he launched.
Yeah, it says Prabhu with Express written all over it.
So we're all actually telling our own stories in different ways.
Yes, that's
but
what
Ronnie,
it's about.
I'd like to ask you about upgrad right away, because I think it's seen a huge upswing in these last 4 months. And what have your learnings been from these last 4 months in terms of online education?
Well, if I were to just sum it up, I don't think it's one of those runaway situations, to be honest. I know a lot of media picks it up and says that. I think the good part is that a sense of urgency has come into the element of using technology in education, because then it can solve problems at scale. I think universities and corporates have adopted to it more than anywhere else, because for the first time they felt, okay, this is something serious. Corporates also realize that education can be taught in that manner. I think the downside is also that most people think now that online education is having a platform like this or Zoom or getting onto something else, and a lecturer will talk, and therefore, and that is not. I think if you really want online to have the level of the same relevance as offline, learning and deep learning experience, counseling, interactive process, technology of a platform is very good. I would say for upgrad, I think what we would have done in the next 4 years, I think we'll now do in 18 months. And that's the good news of it.
Okay.
Not just in terms of growth and adaptability, but because there's such a tailwind and so much acceptability. And, learning, I wouldn't say education, because that's a little bit more of a word which you put to events like college and school. But learning or lifelong learning, I think has got a lot more permanence to it. And I think today more than ever in this acyclical process, it becomes more important, because I think people are realizing that if I want to be in the top 50 percentile of my company or in my career, I'll have to do a lot more right now to prepare myself for that, because the bottom 50% will actually be under threat.
So you were talking about, the things that you were going to do in the next 4 years. You've done it. You'd probably do
in the next 18 months. Yeah.
Could you give us a picture of what that would be?
I think overall, the sense of acceptability of online being as credible as offline is something that would have taken its own course, because institutions, universities, regulatory bodies around the world, and employers are accepting that, meaning the certification process, the examination process, and the hiring process. If I have a CV which says I've done an online course now, the probability of it getting as on as an offline is going to be important. So what I would say, when we would do market making, the market has now been made to quite an extent, because that credibility that we would have otherwise had to take a couple of years to get through has been established. That's really the big needle mover.
That's more the institutional lesson. What about the individual learning? How has that progressed?
I think at the individual learning, there are two parts. Once you're in college, there's the whole element that most people in college don't find that they can go, especially in small towns. They have an ambition and a goal to be a graduate from a particular university, which you really can't. I mean, for example, the female gender, most people, the families are quite conservative, send them out of town. Now, when you can do your degrees online in undergraduation, that opens up a completely different canvas, and it's democratized that, and it's meritorious. So I think that's there. When it comes to the working professional, nobody wants to take 2 years off or 1 year off to go out and then start doing. That's a luxury that you can only have when you're at a certain age or at a certain comfort in your life. But online now allows you to do lifelong learning, where every 3 to 4 years you can specialize in a course, which may take 6 to 9 months, and just upgrade yourself.
What are
tell me one thing, sorry.
Sorry.
I just want to understand how your upgrade is different than the online teaching other apps people are doing, like Byju's and whatnot. You're a specializer. You are much more wider canvas than they have got.
So just to be clear, Byju's is in the K-12 segment. We're in the higher education segment. So that's the clear differentiation. Essentially, ours is deep learning which means it's a 9-month course in either, you can do an MBA for 18 months, you can do a degree, you can do a diploma, you can do a certification. It's in artificial intelligence, but it's mostly for working professionals. So everything above K-12 is what upgrad goes for. That's really the key positioning. Again, I want to repeat that our entire focus is on outcomes. So essentially outcomes means about a third of our people who take our course want to change their jobs. About a third of them want a promotion and want to hire. And a third actually want to tank up. They just want to feel in the next 1 year, I'll use this on my CV or in my career.
Ronnie, I just want to understand this because India is a country where always formal degree from particular university or a particular college gets you a job. For example, upgrade course will get you the same recognition as the formal education degree would get you?
Yes, it would, because our partnerships are always with universities. You know, we're the enabler for the university. So that's the key point. So that is one. Second is you can't take time off today to go to a university to top yourself up after you're in your working career. And that's the other differentiator which comes with that. So I think the third one I would say is when we're talking to our platform, for example, we don't have an academic year. Every month, somebody can join in and take a course for the next 9 months. So we've killed academic year when you're looking at online. It gives you a lot more flexibility. The second one is obviously the kind of feedback that you give is almost every fortnight. Even if you're a class of 30 or a class of 100 in an offline university, you're not going to get that every 14 days. Today, I can tell you, our counselors call up and say, listen, there's one chapter and there's one video. You went through it 5 times. I think you're having a problem with that lesson. Can we help you with that?
Wow.
So there's a tremendous amount. And third, I would tell you that when I have a class with about 200 students, and now we have classes with 1,600 students at one given time, the 1,600 students is a much more interactive and a lively class because peer-to-peer learning is huge. Because on a technology platform, you post a question, within 10 minutes, somebody else is giving you an answer. 5 other people are opining on that. And by the end of the night, you've got a discussion going.
Right. Hey, Ronnie, these 1,600 students from one university or one college, or they're from all over?
So our partnerships are with across. It's Triple IT Bangalore to IIT Madras to Cambridge University to John Moore University in the UK to Duke in Australia and Deakin in Australia. It's a wide variety.
What are the most popular courses, Ronnie?
It started off with data science and data analytics, then moved to everything to do with product and digital marketing. But today, now, even our MBAs, and we're just launching for OP Jindal and in partnership with them, an LLM course in law.
Wow.
And the next will be finance. So the diversity is going to be quite high.
Ronnie, you've always...
Sorry, I just want to understand the mechanism. Faculty belongs to the university concerned, or you get the faculty from teachers from all the other
No, the university is our strong partner. University is a strong partner. Their pedagogy is very much there. The examination process, we work with them closely. And the certification is from the university.
Now, about the teachers.
So actually, that's the unique part about online.
Yeah.
You know, 2 things that are very unique. One is about 30% is faculty in our courses and 70% is industry professionals.
Right.
So you've got industry professionals that are coming in to teach you, which cannot happen in the real world because even if somebody comes, they'll come and do a guest lecture on a Saturday with 40, 50 people. Here, when I've got them on there, they know they're going to impact 100,000 people over the next 2-3 years with their class. Right. So 70% mix of industry professionals, 30% of faculty. That's a big differentiator for what we necessarily do.
Are you going to, who sources them? But you find them outside people who are 70% people?
Yes, that's all done by upgrad.
University job is not involved. So in consultation,
created by upgrad.
How do you have the curriculum or courses? How do you finalize those things? This is what we are going to teach.
So we identify what we think are careers of tomorrow. We then approach the university. Sometimes the university approaches us, but most of the time we're approaching the universities. And that's when we talk to them that says, these we think are ahead of the curve. These are the courses of tomorrow. Can we do this together? Their faculty comes in and we design the course curriculum and then we create the content.
Actually, that was going to be my next question, Ronnie. What are the courses of tomorrow according to you currently? If you're looking at the next...
Well, 2.5 years back, digital data analytics, data science was very much there. Today, it's very much still there. But, you know, for example, an MBA today in business analytics versus an MBA in marketing or HR are things that are actually getting more traction than anything else. So people are looking at, even in their management degrees, how to do it in a slightly shorter period, which could be 15 to 18 months. Okay. And the second one is in various fields of tomorrow.
Such as artificial intelligence.
Yeah, machine learning, artificial intelligence, those are the but I'm just saying an MBA in business analytics today is not something that would have been the normal one, which you have done 10 years back.
What about learning for pleasure? Do you have courses in that, and are they popular?
So I'm a firm believer. So upgrade for us right now is deep learning and the degrees certification. But we're also very clear that soft skills is one of the biggest lacking situations for working professionals and for graduates.
Right.
So part of our endeavor over the next 1 to 2 years also is to start our own soft skills platform. Because the point is that even when I have somebody who's a data scientist, if he can't make the grade at the interview, it's a challenge. So we get a lot of feedback from employers saying, very smart person, but in the conference room, I can't get him to communicate. So how do we get the soft skills interviews, not just interview skills, but overall soft skills? I think in India, that level of confidence, clarity, conviction, those are the ones that we don't teach in school. We don't teach it in college. We don't have that competitive environment that allows us to do that. So we, right now in our courses, because they're so packed, we have a 10% segment of them. We have weekend live classes that teach people the soft skills. But over a period of the next 2 years, we want to launch a separate soft skills platform, which would be there for all our students as a given, for all our alumni as a given. But it'll also be for people who don't know much about online, and it's a good entry point because not everybody wants to start with a deep learning course. So if I need you to get online, you might want to come in and do some soft skills with us, get familiar with the benefit of online, the pleasure of online, and then do something more serious.
And this could range from public speaking to grooming to...
It's everything. It's almost everything. It's handling your first day of job. It's handling your first 90 days of job. It's understanding office politics. It's how to get things done.
That should be fun.
No. I want to ask one question. Are you going to keep away for social sciences, political sciences, or that will be also part of your
no, there's no reason for us. There's no reason
how to behave in politics.
Okay, I won't take the bait for that.
Basic problem is that all of you are upgrading everybody into data sciences, analytics, and whatnot. Most of them don't know who's the chief minister of their own state. They don't connect with the people. So what you are teaching is not connected with what is happening in the society. So how you bring the entire country, nation at one platform?
That way I'll have to have a course for the media also to be able to be the right.
The media.
But I'll have to have a course for them to be the right go-between so they can communicate and take.
That's why I'm asking you the question, because the most popular subjects, which are the how to handle politics of this country or sociology of this country or the dynamics of various religions. So and you have to discuss what does it mean to have a Ram Mandir now in the system.
Yes, no, Prabhu, that's a very relevant question. It's a very, very important point you made there. And I fully agree. And I think the point is for you to feel you're in control of your own destiny, you need to feel controlled, that you just are a much more communicative, confident person. Once you do that, the penny starts in any way dropping for you to be able to be a little bit more discerning. I can't teach you discernibility unless I teach you some of the basics. And that's how it would go.
Because one doesn't always know the reality these days from television channels and newspapers.
No, one thing you definitely would know that you will not know the reality. So there's no uncertainty about that part.
No, since you have been in Bollywood earlier also, no? Because you know what is the reality and what is not, what is the acting. So you know the difference when you're teaching online. You have to teach people reality as well. They have to confront themselves. When they are communicating, they must be fully confident about the information they're gathering from you.
Absolutely. And look, I mean, I spent 15, 20 years in media. Then I took a break and then I moved into education. And when people ask me, what's the commonality between the two? What got you from one to the other? I mean, my core, outside of a few core strengths that I think I have that I bring to the table and I wanted to make an impact, is that even education, like media, is storytelling.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you really want to learn well, you'll remember the two professors who taught you in the way they taught you. If you really want to go to the best universities, the case studies that they present are the things that you remember most.
Ronnie, may I ask about Swadesh Foundation now? Because I think some of the work that you're doing there is quite incredible. What are the learnings from this pandemic? You know, when you've had, and you work in some of the, possibly some of the poorest villages in Maharashtra. So have you had migrants who've come back with the pandemic, who've come back without jobs? Is there any reskilling happening? What have you learned from there?
So just a 30-second background, we work with about 2,200 villages. So that's about close to 1 million people. So that's a pretty scalable operation. We do everything from water, sanitation, health, education to livelihood. So with that, it's a 360-degree model. And our belief is that every 5 to 6 years, we want to empower those people and move out, which means they need to change their destiny. One of the things for the last 4 years was we were promulgating reverse migration.
Yeah.
Because there is an urban India and there's a rural India, and there's this in between, which we all now suddenly discovered at railway stations. But they've been there. They've been there for the longest period of time.
Walking on our streets.
Substantially exploited also.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, and we've met, because the people that are here from our villages, we have on Saturdays and Sundays workshops for the last 4 years. So it doesn't come as and when you ask them, why don't you want to go back to your village? Now we fixed water, we fixed sanitation, the schools, the kids are getting there. And if you come there, we'll teach you entrepreneurship, we'll give you drip irrigation, we'll water your place. And part of the context that they have is their level of saying, once we've come here, going back to the village for them is a little bit of a failure. It's like, I didn't make it in the city and I go back. And that's been a big psychological situation. This pandemic has erased that because they've gone in there without that insecurity, of course, at compelling situations and at bad times. So I think this is going to be a recalibration because what they earn here in the cities is an exploitative salary. Let's be very clear about that. Now that they're going, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, finish, please finish.
Yeah, no, so now that so what we have in our 1 million people, for example, about 35% of our households are closed, which means they come only at Ganpati or Diwali, but otherwise they work in Mumbai mostly, a little bit in Pune and Sholapur, but mostly Mumbai. 95,000 of those immigrants came back in those 3 months. 75,000 came in. We had to manage the entire situation of, 14 days of quarantine. Then it went to 95,000 people to come back. We're working with them. Right now, about 50% want to go back to work wherever they came from, partly because they've not been paid 3 months' salary. So they've gone away and said, I still have to collect my dues. I don't want to cut my cord. Right. Partly they figured out, what am I going to do in those places? Right. But I think this is one element of people that we've completely ignored. So I think we need to deal with the half that will stay in rural India separately. And the people who want to come back, I think they will have to be recalibrated in their ability to have a better standard of living. Right. And I'm glad because if that force comes down by 50%, then the people employing them, whether it's the hospitality sector, the construction sector, whatever, will have to pay at least 1.5, if not 2x what they were paying before March.
Right. Ronnie, I'm going to raise a very fundamental question, which I've been raising with others as well, because you're talking about technology, our Prime Minister talking about technology, talking to all the international people about technology. You see, when reform started in 1991, it led to some kind of a massive inequality of incomes. Now, this technology burst is going to create inequality of education quality as well. There will be a certain part of India which will not be able to listen to Ronnie because he doesn't have access to any tablet or any iPad or whatnot, and there are no villages, there are no lights, there are nothing, people are moving back. So technology is going to create a further new India, which is richer. As people are talking about, there is India, there is Bharat. This technology which you are using, the upgrade which you are doing, most of the people will not have access to that. So you are going to create another India of a different kind.
Yeah.
How to solve that problem?
Well, Prabhu, I'll answer that. I don't think all of us, including the Prime Minister, have all the answers for all the questions and have all the solutions for all the answers. Let's be very clear about it. We're a very complicated and complex country.
No, everything is elitist. No, everything is elitist.
I agree with you. But I want to answer that question, and I'll say it in two ways. Firstly, there is 100 million people in the workforce that need to upgrade in themselves. Now, I could say I won't do that because I'll create a bigger divide between urban and rural India, and I don't do that. And I want to adopt the fact that I still need to solve for them. However, because we run a not-for-profit and at the scale at which we do in Swadesh, I know because it's, in a day, I might be doing 2 meetings here, but 2 meetings on the other side. I can tell you that digital Swadesh, which is what it was staring at us, but we never did it till COVID happened. Because for the 1 month we said, my God, if we're doing this, we can't go to our villages, but we solved problems. We reached people and their ration packet. We did farming lessons. We did so many things on the digital medium that we got statistics. So out of about 2,200 villages in a reasonably Adivasi and poor states, 60 to 70% of them do have some sense of bandwidth for us to do low math. So for us and for NGOs today, digital Swadesh is our next movement. So we work in 1,200 schools and 800 Anganwadis. In Anganwadis, we won't do digital. But in our schools, we're definitely looking at doing 2 hours to 3 hours in terms of digital. Your caliber of the teachers goes up your caliber of the. So if I was doing a library class or a storytelling class, if I was doing a science lab, I can't do it over the next 6 months to a year. I feel we're going to do it on digital. So all I'm saying is I have to look at the problem separately. Yes, if I do solve a problem for the 100 million working professionals in terms of higher specialization and upgrading, I will create a different rift, but that does not mean I don't solve that problem. And I think those are the hard calls people have to take.
Ronnie, just to go back to the point you made about the people who will come back, who hopefully will get better salaries, and the people who will stay back. Now you'll have to have two different kinds of reskilling for these two groups of people.
Yeah.
Have you given that some thought?
Oh, lots of thought, because as I said, we were trying to canvas them for the last 4 years to reverse migrate in the first place.
Yeah.
So we were giving badges of honor for them to reverse migrate. Now they have. Now it's a different problem.
Right.
Where we have to solve the problem of so many people at scale to solve them.
Right.
So skilling, if you ask me today, what is the key challenge in rural India? It's raising aspiration levels.
Right.
Because once you raise aspiration levels and ambition levels, people there don't feel that if I earn more, what will I do with it? They don't understand financial inclusion. They don't understand financial literacy. They don't understand aspiration. So that's a soft thing. But I can tell you, having worked, one of the biggest mistakes we made when we started off at scale 5-6 years back is that we set our own targets.
Right.
So we were entrepreneurs, we set our targets in an NGO. And in 2 years' time, we realized these are our targets. They're not the community's target.
Right.
So then there was a big mismatch. So when you're working in the not-for-profit space, you need a completely different DNA.
Right.
So I think that's really the key differentiator for us.
So what are the kinds of things that they can do? Will they go into business? Will they go into small?
No. So I think about a third of them have land.
Right.
There we will do drip irrigation and get them to get 2 to 3 crops.
Right.
We look at our entire approach for livelihoods with solving a GDP. So we
Right.
do so that's if they got agri. The second one is, of course, animal husbandry. So everything to do with dairy, where we're augmenting dairy. You can have 2 cows. We help them get the loans very easily. Every 9 kilometers, we need to set up a chilling plant. So
Right.
therefore, at least 7 or 8 will become entrepreneurs in each of those villages to form chilling plants.
Right.
So an entrepreneurial ecosystem of distributors who will take this augmented non-paddy outcome that will come now that they're having 3 crops or picking up milk. We've got right now about 44 cashew entrepreneurs, which we need to take to about 400 cashew entrepreneurs. Each cashew entrepreneur, my first goal to them is, I'll fund you, but you need to hire 20 people. In 6 months, you need to get to a scale where you hire 20 people within your community.
Okay.
They were doing cashew in the Konkan Belt because the cashew from the Konkan Belt is one of the better ones known. That's where we're operating from. But they would work for only 2 to 3 months because Jan, Feb, March is the only time you get raw materials in cashew. Right. Nobody has working capital to hold it for the whole year inventory to do 12 months of that. So they would hire people and gone. For 9 months, they would be doing something else. So how do you build that kind of consistency? So cashew was our best example of saying, now you do it around the year, we'll hoard it over the months and keep giving it to you monthly, but hire 20 people.
Right.
So I would say between entrepreneurship, agri, skill development, and animal husbandry, which is a combination of dairy, poultry, and goatery,
right,
there's enough to be done.
And what about the ones who are coming back to the cities?
It's their choice. I think they're quite happy to do that.
How do you?
Once they come to the city, at this point, we don't have an infrastructure. They'll have to go back to their job and hopefully there'll be less of them and they can do more. What we're doing right now is educating them that, look, the reasons, because we met all of them and we said, look, when you were for the last 4 years, you said, I would like to go back, but what will my people in the village think? Now you're back. You have a license to do whichever way you want to go. So they feel today that, yes, if I go back, it has to be worth my while. So we've taught them a little bit of that self-confidence in their ability to go back and negotiate. I don't know. It's a demand-supply situation. Right. Will they succeed or will they get exploited? I don't know.
Right. Ronnie, how have you been working with the other NGOs? I mean, have you had collaborations with NGOs over the years, or are you all still working?
We're an execution foundation ourselves.
Right.
But we do work with vendors who are also, some are for profit, some are for less profit, and some are for no profit.
Right.
So we work with them. Like one of our best ones was Rooms to Read, which sets up libraries around India. And we've set up a lot of libraries with them, and then we've set up our own libraries also. Otherwise, when we do water, sanitation, education projects, it's mostly with vendors.
Right. And I'd like to bring you to your role as someone who invests in startups as well. How do you choose what is going to work? what is that one thing or two things that sparks your interest for you to sort of invest your time
So, I
and
mean,
money in it?
Kaveri, to be candid, I just did, when I sold UTV to Disney in 2012, for that
Yeah.
1.5 years in transition, that's the only time I sort of decided that I want to also be an investor. And then the penny dropped with me in one of my longest holidays I took till that time, which was about a 10-day holiday, that I'm a doer. I'm a doer and not an investor, because I love it, but I think at the end of it, I wanted to build from ground upwards, which is how Upgrad came about along with my co-founders. So at that particular point in time, I did make a few investments. I think if you ask me today, at the end of the day, it is the entrepreneur. And in the entrepreneur, it is her or his problem solving ability.
Right.
Because actually, for the first 10 years of building your company and a lot longer, the caliber of your growth is the caliber of the problems you can solve, the size of problems you can solve, and the leadership qualities you show. Now, it's not just about problem solving. It's a very complex process, because with that, you need to be a listener. You need to be a leader. You need to actually be sensitive to so many situations. So to me, I think that's really the core, the entrepreneur and his or her ability to solve problems on one side. And the second one, to a certain extent, is how big a market are they entering into? Because there will be ups and downs. But when there's a down, if the market itself is huge, chances are you'll survive that. If the market is too niche, your ability to survive a niche market will be very low. And that becomes a very high-risk proposition. And then you need to be a real super entrepreneur to be able to do that.
But when you began, for instance, you virtually created a market. I mean, cable TV didn't exist. You virtually went from door to door and convinced people that this was really going to be the future. So, what is the cable TV, say, of 2020 or 2021? The
No, I
industry that
think
will
it's about,
surprise
firstly, you need to
everyone.
reflect yourself. I
Right.
think myself at that particular point in time was a complete lack of self-entitlement. And I think today, younger entrepreneurs have
Yeah.
a high sense of entitlement.
Right.
I mean that in a very strong manner. I'm not saying it as a criticism, but there's just a very high sense of entitlement. So when you come with the lower expectations and you feel, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to have to make this work and I'm going to stick it out, and no, there's no VC or angel funding, and I'm still going to solve it, you just don't have that sense of entitlement. And if you have that in the beginning, it just stays with you for life.
Right.
So I think my persistence was, I'm not giving up. And by the way, just cable TV at that time, it took a year before we got the first connection.
Yeah.
For such a simplistic idea. So today, I think the gap is, if you lower your self-entitlement right at the start, your ability to succeed is going to be higher.
Right.
Yes, only most of the startups are not closing down at the figures which we are getting because of various reasons. Some of the startups started 2 years ago. 50-40% have closed down. They are not been able to survive. What could be the reason? Entitlement.
It started with entitlement, because entitlement.
Or they were well connected and they got well funding and
No, it started with entitlement to a certain extent, but I would say they went for funding. There you get investors. Investors are going to tell you, grow. If you haven't got a fundamental model, then it's not going to survive in a crisis period, which is pretty much what I said before.
Right.
So I think today, when you don't have a model, the problem is the investor will say, don't worry, you're good for the next round of funding. And then you pull the rug on a model that was still 3 years out before it was going to be turning profitable. I don't think an entrepreneur is a superhuman being to be able to do that in 15 days. The Prime Minister gave us all 4 hours to lock down. 8 p.m. was the discussion. 12 p.m. we were all locked down, right? I don't think any super entrepreneur was going to have a solution for that process. He was solving a national problem to control a pandemic. The entrepreneur had to then react to that. So I think today that gap is that if people had come in there with not thinking that fundraising is my only badge of honor. Today, even media covers people based on how much funds they've raised, not how successful the business model is.
Absolutely right.
But if that axis changes a bit.
But I see a conspiracy between the media, whatever you want to call it, and between the VCs and the people who are running the startups, because I've done some study somewhere, but most of the people are well connected. They are the sons and daughters of the IAS officers or politicians, and they are being supported by VCs who are based in Washington or somewhere else. And that's why they couldn't sustain the model, because they depended too much on what you are calling on luck or entitlement. I am son and so, so business should come to me.
Correct.
So that is what they have failed. That you are rightly saying that you have to have a sustainable model. But basic question, rather, what you are doing is, because you are wearing so many hats, I have to figure out where you are trying to, you are running NGOs, you are running this
No, I'm running an educational.
No, you're doing many various things. As you said, 2 meetings here and 2 meetings there. So you're obviously distributing your time. But are you also involved in some way B2C connectivity as well through your upgrade?
Well, upgrade is 100% B2C. Every single student pays us that ARPU that they're paying us. The companies are not paying their fees. So we took a very difficult route even in upgrade. We could have easily gone first to corporates and says, what can we do for your training needs? Right. But we know they would have taken 8 years and said, no, poo to online. They would have done poo. And I've done that. In my media business, every ad agency and every media house that I went to, they were said, digital, no. Okay, we'll give 2% of our budget to digital. 98% has to be on television. We're saying, but television is getting our cake, till one fine day, they had to move. So I think as much as media houses, I think I've stood that course and figured out their skepticism. The same skepticism today exists in corporate India on online courses. In the last 3-4 months, it's changed, as I mentioned in the beginning, which is why I think we can now do in 18 months what we would have otherwise definitely taken 4 years to do.
Ronnie, let me complete it, cover one question, because it's here the advertising question.
Sure.
Advertising, I see somehow, I feel, I may be wrong as a journalist, I always question. But there was some kind of a conspiracy between the advertisers, agencies, newspapers, television channels, because they run the BARC, they run the IRS, and they fudge the figures, whatever is happening. Now the digital has broken these geographical boundaries, because all of you are deciding IRS, where it is red, where it's not red. I find the IRS report where my own paper is published from Cochin, and the IRS says not a single person reads that paper. How can you imagine? And I'm number 2 there. So obviously all of you conspire. I don't mean you alone. So this was a bogus thing where everybody was scratching each other's back. Now that is exposed. Digital media has no boundaries now. Now I can compete with anybody sitting anywhere in the number, and Ronnie can ask me, okay, your circulation is so much, but my reach is much more than what the time leader one claim to be selling or claiming. But that is what is going to have a further divide now. All of you have to find the new model of communicating with your target audience. Yeah. Now newspaper and television channels are no more the target communication effective communication model.
See, I think Prabhu, you calling it conspiracy, and you have the liberty to do that. I'm calling it conflict of interest. And I'll say it's a conflict of interest context, which we don't solve in many parts of the world, including in India. And the same doesn't apply just here. It applies to audit firms. They're advising you on one side, getting your tax thing on the other side, and auditing you on the third side. It's with all consultants if you look at that. So conflict of interest at every stage exists. And if you run businesses with conflict of interest, it's going to catch up with you at some stage.
They should be divided. Newspaper owners and television owners should not be part of the BARC or any regulatory mechanism.
Yes. But then we want consolidation, because if you don't get consolidation, you don't get scale.
Right.
The ones that really get scaled by being a vertical and not being consolidated by owning everything of everything, those are the ones that will create long-term value. Otherwise, when something really goes wrong, and I think you're seeing that in most of media. I mean, I think broadcasting and print today is really not, it's not a crossroad moment anymore. It's a changing moment, which I don't think is going to bounce back that easily for everyone concerned. And that's because deep dependency on advertising has been there. A lot of things have been, this is how it goes. Why rock the boat? I'm damned if I do, and I'm damned if I don't.
For cross-media ownership, if there was banned in the United States and whatnot, here there is nothing. Everybody has been sabotaged because the movement was there. Okay, cross-media ownership will not be there. Now the corporates own media, they own the BARC, they own everything else.
Yeah.
And you
I won't go there. I won't go. I won't go there.
Because why? You're afraid of something or what?
No, I'm just saying.
Even your clients are owned by some of them. Na? Bennett may be there or whatever. I'm not naming.
Yeah, we're a B2C company.
Maybe OP Jindal. Everybody's owned by somebody or the other.
Thankfully, I'm not in the media business anymore. So my clients are really learners and students and working professionals. I'm quite happy with doing that. And my other clients and customers sit in rural India. So I think I'm quite peaceful about that.
But Ronnie, we cannot but ask you where you see the media business going. Purely as in terms of storytelling, where do you see the best and the most compelling stories coming from? Do you see it from, streaming services? Do you see it from digital, print, sort of combination?
So I will answer that question. I think I'll answer that in 2 parts. I mean, I think there are many parts of media now that is quite long-term broken. I think broadcasting is definitely, I can't see it being a sunrise industry in any case. It's going to remain to be challenged as we go forward in all aspects.
Whether it's entertainment or news.
Yes. Well, News, in any case, I don't think was ever really profitable. It was substantially supported. It was a rounding error for a lot of people, which is perfectly fine. But there was a certain sense of stature that it brought with it. So broadcasting, I think, is there. When you come to storytelling, I think it's not going away by any stretch, because that is a essential need that all of us need in our normal.
Right.
Even right now, when we're having this conversation, we are telling our story.
Exactly.
We are all storytellers in some form or the other. Just because it's a storytelling in fiction doesn't mean that real life is not storytelling. Real life is as much storytelling as the other. And today, more than ever, storytelling has gone to real life.
Yeah.
Some of the best stories and movies you're seeing today are the ones that are based on a true story.
Your
Today,
Yuri,
when you go there,
I know you don't like to acknowledge your new movie career, but Yuri was a fantastic example.
Yes, it was based on a true story. So today, if you see stories based on true stories, it's very, very strong. So I would say storytelling is perennial.
Right.
Now, when you ask me where would the best stories be told, yes, I think the digital platforms today, even if you look at it in the Western world, Hollywood has gone pretty bankrupt, I would say, in terms of ideas and scripts, and it's all moved to the digital. The caliber of writing and storytelling in the digital field, because it gives you the structure and it gives you that ability, is very much. So therefore, Hollywood has only gone to franchises and repeats and sequels and whatever else.
Yeah.
So similarly here, today, if you see some of the quality, I think storytelling in the digital platform will give you a lot more flexibility, will give you that time. Talents that otherwise could not come into just a 30, because of 3 hour storytelling, you need an interval because the multiplexes want to sell their popcorn. Now, who has an interval? Like every flight from Bombay to Delhi lands at Ahmedabad. Who's going to fly Bombay to Delhi? Okay, because that means you have to slow down the aircraft 10 minutes before landing. You have to land and you take off again. So an interval point just elongates your movie by almost 20 minutes in narrative.
Yeah.
Because you got to slow down the plot and then you have to remind the audience after they got distracted what they were coming back for.
Right.
So that storytelling in the digital world, I think, is going to be where the best talent is going to gravitate.
What
But
about
Ronnie, there's a problem because in storytelling through the digital platform, you have millions of opportunities now. Everybody is a storyteller, is a YouTuber or the digital writer. There's a competition going to be among themselves because millions of people, content providers, will be telling their story through various mediums. Now, how many subscribers I've got, how many people are watching, I don't know which medium.
No, so Prabhu, there's a big screen that will always have some good storytelling and has a different way. The digital world will have its own storytelling. And then for the people who everyone wants to be a storyteller, there is the social platforms. Whereas actually that 30 seconds and 1 minute, you've got to see there's no popularity for the sake of it. If people have got 20 million and 30 million views and followers, not just for cats and dogs videos, it is also because they're telling their story. So now you've got a very different platform for every single person. How you monetize it is got a different economics.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge, isn't it, even now? We're so advertising led.
So I think the digital platforms are less advertising led.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they're all global companies.
Right.
I don't think the Indian companies have been able to find scale to be successful. And that, even if you look at Southeast Asia, where a lot of people came in, both in Indonesia, Singapore, wherever countries have gone for their own one country single platform, they have not been able to really excel or do really very well. So you need a sort of a more global platform. But the beauty, I think, of Indian storytelling peaking today or going up is because we have digital platforms. So people in Korea and Japan can enjoy the story day and date with what you want to do. Then your thinking goes into a slightly more universal audience. Otherwise, if you were making for India and you felt a movie for India, it would never work. Then you'll get orphaned in both places. But on a digital, your possibility of getting orphaned in your storytelling is much less.
What about news in this case, Ronnie? Where is it going?
Well, it's not there right now. So where can it go?
You
If there was news, I can tell you where it's going. I haven't tuned on to a news channel. So if there is a news channel, then let me know. I can tell you where it's going to go.
Why don't you start a news channel if you think there's no news channel?
No, thank you.
You're also afraid of new environment.
No, nothing to be afraid. It's a thankless job, I think, on the other side, because what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is the tail wagging the dog? All these questions that will be asked.
Ronnie, do you think India doesn't need the news channel?
They do need it. But I think the digital people have usurped it. The younger generation are not watching these news channels. Let's be very clear. English news channels, the world and the nation is not asking, and they're not waiting, and they're not asking that genuinely. And look, everyone's doing a great job in their own field, but it's a very niche business today.
Yeah.
It's just that the noise level for all of us watching we think the whole nation is watching, but they're not. The younger audience has moved on long time back.
And they found their own specialists that they follow, and that they watch. So they don't they find their information online through various sources.
Oh yeah. And actually, to be honest, a little bit of peer-to-peer is, people prefer it when 5 other people have gone there. It's a little bit like you today don't go and book a hotel anyway based on the testimonial ad of the hotel. You wait around the 20 people who went there and gave their frank comments.
Right.
That's news. That's
today's news. What's the future of print media, Ronnie? Tell us that. Because we are from the print media. What's the future of print media?
I think in a country like India, it's still a nice, good habit. Unfortunately, the demographic is going to overtake the trend, because once that demographic is not looking at newspapers and stuff, they're not. Even in the smaller towns, whatever else. I think if you take the models of what Financial Times in the UK and New York Times have now done, the right mix of using a common staff. I think some of our organizations need to break up the hierarchy of the organization also, if you ask me very respectfully. I think we're quite hierarchical in our approach. And if you really want to get there, old media can't really beat new media. You need startups for new media. I mean, we've seen that in the media business also. Some of the biggest companies in the world have been left behind in the digital sphere, where you've got, for example, right now, Netflix is more valuable than the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah.
Now, why should that be the case? Okay, they've got phenomenal theme parks, 100-year-old brand, extremely successful businesses. But for some reason, they didn't think what was not a threat is not a threat.
Right.
So I think if the media organizations can break down the hierarchy, that, okay, these people will do print, these people will do digital, it has to morph, and you have to look at it. If someone were to start a news company today, their probability of success is higher because they'll come with a fresh mind, no baggage.
Right.
So if news companies want to introspect, what's the baggage they're carrying, and what do I do if I had the luxury of starting all over again today?
Ronnie, you've always been at the intersection of business, media, society. And in some ways, your businesses have also reflected the social change in India. So when you look at
hopefully not by accident, but by design.
By design, I think you used to do, or still do, quite a lot of inquiry. You do quite a lot of surveys, small or big, before really stepping into any zone. So I wanted to ask you, when you look at the top 3 trends, say, of the next 2-3 years, because I'm not even sure whether 2-3 years is too long a time these days. But what would it be, you think, socially, culturally, economically?
You're talking about from a younger group point of view. What are they looking for?
What is the world looking at? I suppose we should look at younger people. They're the future.
Yeah, no, but what is the world looking at? I think today, overall, when you're looking at if you're talking, I'm not quite sure if I got your full question, but are you saying it from a sector point of view or from what point of view?
From multi-sectors. I mean, just because everything is connected now, isn't it? What is economy now is culture tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah. I find the younger generation a lot more savvy and a lot more responsible. I actually do. I do say they feel entitled, and that's a good word because it starts with self-confidence.
Right.
And if you can differentiate between self-confidence and overconfidence, I think they'll do fine when it comes to entitlement.
Right.
But I find them extremely aware.
Right.
I think when we talk about philanthropy, we talk about it in this very grand manner, for example, of giving back, and I need to have a bank balance to be able to do that. When we started, I was 23, 24 when we started our not-for-profit foundation. Today, when my daughter looks at giving back, she has a very different approach to that. So I think today's youth is much more curious. I think from a cultural point of view, they're a lot more balanced. They're extremely passionate about what they want to do. And I think, therefore, we're in a good place. I think the biggest challenge that a lot of the youth is going to do is to some of our political systems in many places in the world, where after some stage, the reason you're seeing last 2-3 years, for example, both the UK, USA, these very different and diabolic results is because of a high level of frustration.
Yeah.
They want to elect leaders that says either you lead or get out of the way,
right,
or have a strong point of view.
right.
And that's
Ronnie,
what they would do. Yeah, sorry.
Ronnie, I just sorry to say, because we are discussing about young people most of the time, because I have got a different experience. Because in India today, when we decided, okay, why people are not reading the magazine, the question arises because youths are not reading it. So we changed the content of the magazine from serious magazine to youth, and coverage was there. And we found that our circulation went down further after that, because they don't read anyway. And we changed their content, and it was not reading. And you see the magazine they've done, because they're discovering the new reader. But I'm saying that as you go forward, maybe having a youngest population now, but graying of India will happen ultimately.
Yes.
What kind of content for people who are senior, 50 plus? You are all talking about the people, Netflix and whatnot, which are still below 50 or 40. But what is the content availability for a person, senior person, who are cross-set? They have seen everything. What will happen in the future? What is there for me?
No, I think today...
I can't watch Netflix. I don't like most of that. I can't read newspaper. What do I do?
Then you should create your own content.
No, but then Ronnie should finance me. Only then I can.
No, I think we lack that sense of inspirational content also today. And I'm quite happy that when I've re-entered after 5 years and to the storytelling part again, I found the audience change, both not just for the younger, but everyone else, is the mixture of sense of a reality versus just a suspension of reality. I think entertainment was viewed more as a suspension of reality.
Yeah.
Today, that's come different. Now, in news, it's quite different. I think in news, it's the question of depth, independence of view, peer-to-peer view, and a lot more brevity. That's what I think some of the people are looking for. Debate, discussion is a thing of the past. I think debate and discussion today on social media is so rapid and so fast that to have a 1 hour debate or discussion is something that does not necessarily hold the attention for many people. And you're right, we will age, but that same people who are growing up with touchscreens will have a different worldview of life, even when they get to 30 and when they get to 40.
Right. And we're all living longer also. We can't even escape that.
No, that's good. That's good news.
So
senior people and everybody plus 50, they have the money, they have the retention power also. They can listen to Ronnie and me for I'm 75 almost now. I have started doing this discussion on TV after many years. So that keeps myself busy. But there are some people who are still watching. Because when I started, I was not getting even 1,000 viewers or 500 viewers. Now I'm getting 15,000, 20,000. It means people are showing some kind of interest somewhere. So what is the future for that kind of content? Where you are catering to only people who have the time and the patience to listen to Ronnie Screwvala.
Yeah, it's a different storytelling. I don't think the younger generation today wants to believe that actually kyunki saas bhi kabhi bahu thi. They think nahi bahu nahi.
Exactly.
वो तो सास भी बन गई ना, तब तक सास बन जाएगी
बिल्कुल.
So she has to work, listen like a science and work like a science.
That's right.
But what is the future of that? How do you get that kind of content for senior citizens? Let me call
No,
it
I
senior.
think there is a mixture of both. I mean, I can tell you, for example, in some of the storytelling that we're doing today, I think the kind of movie that we did, for example, Uri, was a universal content.
Yeah.
We're doing a biopic on Ram Jethmalani. We're doing a biopic on Sam Manik's show.
Wow.
These are universal. I have to see to it why somebody who's never heard of The Gentleman will also feel inspired by that story.
Right.
Because we don't have iconic role models anymore. Right. I think today we need more iconic role models, and we need to build on that as we go forward.
Right.
You should do Nani Palki Wala also.
Sure. No, law is a very important subject in this country. And it's more about the persona and the people and their analytical skills and what they stood for, their principles, everything else that goes with it.
Right. Ronnie, you wrote Dare to Dream with your eyes open.
Dream with your eyes open, yeah.
Dream with your eyes open. I'm so sorry. So, what was the reaction that you got from people who read that? Did they want to be mentored by you? Did they say, oh, this is something that's changed our lives?
I think I wrote it for two reasons. I just felt when I started to be an entrepreneur, it was a very tough situation because between parental pressure and no real infrastructure. And I found 20 years later, people are still hesitating that is it a social stigma? Should I, should I not? That was one. And second is I don't think we celebrate failure enough, especially in countries like India as ever. We just do not evangelize it. We don't distinguish it. So to me, the book was more about it's absolutely fine to fail. And here's the situation. There is no way you're going to be successful unless you really badly fail. And I think those are the two reasons I wrote it. So the response I got was very satisfying because I did that. I wrote in that very down-to-earth manner what I wanted to do. It wasn't I thought at least, preachy.
Hmm.
And therefore the response was good.
Hmm.
But I also did one more thing, because to me it was more a passion. So I did print 500,000 copies and distributed to B schools and colleges across India to the best of my ability, outside of the normal circulation, because I wrote it more, it was more as a passion.
Right.
That if I want to disseminate a message, and today now technology is, you don't need to spend that kind of money also, because between a digital book, an audio book, a video book, and a real book, people will, it's got a life of its own.
Right. I think that we've had a marvelous conversation, Mr. Chawla. Would you like to ask any more questions?
Yes,
Apart
okay,
from
thank
seeking
you.
his advice on everything, we've
Yeah.
really missed.
I'm not the person who's going to be able to
him.
give advice out here at all, but thank you. This was really very nice and a very lively conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so
Ronnie.
much, Ronnie. It was such a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Bye.